taking a critical look at the gaming news of the week. This is Augmented Reality, presented by the Triple S League.
Within the past couple hours, CD Projekt Red turned on the Twitter account for Cyberpunk 2077.
It's funny to watch EA squirm under the magnascope that is Disney right now.
An in-house game from Bethesda Game Studios will be announced at E3 2018.
I'm loving this new intro that we've got.
And we're also going to be talking about Anthem. The developers have supposedly shifted focus to focus on a more story-driven, immersive world. As opposed to what exactly, I wonder. Cyberpunk is being built for current and next-gen consoles. Turns out, in some countries, loot boxes are already illegal under current law.
I've told you to clear your schedule of everything in June and May.
Yeah, I'll just tell the kids, no food until July. Fallout 76 still sounds strange to me.
And then this is what happened. Chaos. Pure and absolute utter chaos. Pardon me, dear friend and colleague. How has thouest family been? I hope that all is well at the homestead. P.S. WTF happened with your bloody info?
Please say hello in the live chat. I can't even read my own script here.
Your human germs and things are really quite gross.
Todd Howard openly admitted that they are scared, as he joked about their games have had a few bugs here and there.
And they said, what, don't you guys have phones? It's
yeah, as if that's the problem.
I got from two separate sources in the same week that Borderlands 3 has started localization.
So, let's talk about Anthem. Haven't done this in a while. There hasn't been much to talk about.
Actually, there has been. It's not been interesting.
Obsidian is teasing something very interesting.
Sorry about that.
Hey, it's Jeremy Lee, and you are watching my favorite channel on YouTube, the Triple S League. Enjoy, guys.
Hello, everybody, and for the final time in 2018, welcome to the Augmented Reality Podcast, your source for news, leaks, and insights about games and the gaming industry. It's December 29th, 2018, and this is our year-end podcast on a Saturday. Haven't done this in a while. We're going to return to our regular schedule next Friday. Will be our first podcast of the new year, but aside from that, welcome to our year-end recap of the most important games and the most important news stories of 2018. Hope you enjoyed that little recap of some of the stuff that we have talked about this year, all of the wonderfully important things we had to say. Hello, Subsidian. How are you doing?
I'm good. I'm always surprised at how many things we managed to call in advance. It's
as I was going through the clips to make that little intro, I couldn't believe some of the stuff that happened this year. That seems like so long ago. Like the Beep tweet. Well, actually, the Beep tweet I couldn't believe was a year ago. But some of the stuff it's been a long year, and so lots of fun stuff to go through today. If you're listening live this morning, please say hello in the live chat, and don't forget to put your comments and questions there as well. And we will get to read out and answer as many of them as we can throughout the podcast today. If you're listening after the fact on one of the audio-only platforms, we're glad you're here as well. And we appreciate your likes and follows. It does take a day or two to get the podcast up on the audio platform, so if you want the latest info sooner, we encourage you to hit the link in the description to subscribe to the Triple S League YouTube channel. Hello, everybody who's listening. Max Mouse, Bluntman, and Katriox in the chat. We got a slow start this morning. I think it's a little early, and everybody is still hungover from all their turkey and all their holiday goings-ons. But that's all right. We will carry on. So, man, a lot happened this year. It was a huge year for us. I was looking at our stats, and the total playtime that our videos got this year adds up to close to 20 years. That blew my mind.
Well, that's always good.
Yeah, that means for every minute of 2018, 20 minutes of our videos were watched. That took me a while to wrap my head around that. Want to shout out a few of the excellent people that we worked with this year. Sup Matto, of course, a complete Borderlands genius who's got a great channel about Borderlands stuff and definitely had a lot to say about. He's been dropping tons of info about Borderlands 3. So we absolutely appreciate, and he's been on our podcast, I think half a dozen times now.
Yeah, he's been on a few times. I like his style. I like his video editing. So he's a good channel.
Yeah,
Check him
he's
out,
really,
especially if you're into Borderlands stuff. We're gonna start doing more Borderlands-y stuff. It wasn't necessarily something that we thought for sure our audience would like, but we're gonna definitely be doing more of it.
And then Tez MMO, also a great content creator and streamer who was he joined us when we were covering Bless Online. I want to shout out also Alex from Nukes and Dragons, who created that excellent character creation tool for Fallout 76. Had him on the podcast and did some work with him as well. Jamie Catalyst, always as always, he's been working in the background, helps us with editing, all kinds of things. Thuggy Smurf, who did a ton of work on our Fallout 4 mod this year. Megan, aka Athena Rose, who did some writing for us and also went to Gamescom in Europe. That was really helpful for us. And also, of course, the Mad Queen, who we've done a ton of work with on Cyberpunk 2077 stuff. So, more people showing up in the chat here. Russ Hunt, Bluntman, and Crazy Joy. Welcome, everybody. What did you miss, Crazy? So far,
just our intro.
Yeah, just our intro and a bit of recap and shouting out some of the people we've worked with this year as people trickle in. And now we're going to get to our list of the most important 15 games of 2018. Now, this is restricted to games that we have played, and we're going to be sorting them as to which ended up on the naughty list and which ended up on Santa's nice list this year. So, Notional, welcome. It's great to see you as well. So much coffee, cakes, and family. Need gaming. Need to nerd stuff. Send help. Well, we'll do what we can from through the internet, YouTube's streaming service here. Glad you could tune in. All right, so as I was saying, the top 15 games of 2018. Now, this is the top most important games of 2018, not necessarily the best games of 2018. So I want to make that clear. And as I said, we're going to be sorting them according to whether they were naughty or nice this year. And so place your predictions in the chat as we go through, and we will, we'll just jump right into it. A couple of honorable mentions though that we want to shout out because we weren't able to play a lot, or every single game that came out, and there's a few that came out exclusively on consoles that we weren't able to touch. But Red Dead Redemption 2, God of War, and Spider-Man all on the nice list this year. Again, those are honorable mentions because we weren't able to play those ones, although I was tempted to put Red Dead 2 on the naughty list because it didn't come out on PC yet. But
yeah, that always sucks.
And then, of course, Battlefield 5 on our honorable mentions naughty list for reasons we won't get into, but I'm sure most of you are familiar with. But all right, let's get into our actual list, and we're going through them alphabetically. So as we go, place your predictions as to which ones end up on the naughty and which ones end up on the nice list. So Atlas, of course, just recently announced at the Game Awards, and then had their pre-access or early access launch on Steam. Just when was it? A couple weeks ago.
So no, it was supposed to. It was supposed to come out on the 13th, and it got delayed to the 19th. And then it was supposed to come out on the 19th, and it got delayed to the 21st, then to the 23rd, which ultimately ended up happening. And then once you got in, the servers were terrible, to say the least. Once again, I have confirmed that the performance bug that was affecting me in the previous types of these games, so Conan and Ark, it still hasn't been fixed. It's been like 3 games now. I have a singular performance issue with my game, with my computer when running this game. And still, I guess they haven't fixed it. It's been 3 iterations of this game, and at no point have they fixed the singular bug that happens to be tied in with the particular processor that I'm using. And I guess way back when they launched Arc originally, I contacted them on the support thread and said, look, I'd love to play this game, but I have this like absolute impossibility of running your damn game because of some bug that's basically making it like crawl at like a 2 or 3 frames per second thing. And they did some investigating and said, oh, it looks like it's an issue with your processor, and we don't have the time or resources to fix every processor problem for all the different processors, so therefore we can't do anything for you.
So sucks to be you, get a different computer, basically. Well,
sucks to be you, get a different computer, basically. And now fast forward to this release, still there.
Huh.
Still can't play the damn game.
Now,
so
you'll have to help me out here a bit because, again, like you, I haven't had a chance to actually play the game, but I've been watching some coverage of it online, and man, it looks nothing like it does in the trailers. Like, the actual gameplay does not look anything like the quality that we saw in the trailers for this game. And I'm also hearing that it's basically just a reskin of Ark. Is that true?
Basically, yes. Basically, yes. Basically, they essentially created basically just a rough reskin, and they have little to like. I don't know. They've always done this with their trailers. Their trailers look amazing, and it's like, damn, I wish that I could get this thing running that smoothly on any of my stuff. So it's not. So it's not the worst reskin, but it is essentially just a reskin. Like, I went into it, and sure enough, all the old menus and all the stuff and all the crappy icons, they really have to improve their icons. It's like, could you hire just one artist to just draw some stuff? A bunch of, so yeah, it's basically just a really rough reskin, and it's not the greatest. So
all right. Well,
not super impressed by it so far. I've been kind of disappointed. I haven't refunded the game because, and I do want to give them kudos for this. It's like, at least they didn't charge you full price for the game. I paid about $20 Canadian for it, which is really actually low.
That's not the normal price that the game is selling for, isn't it? Is it?
No, that's the on sale pre-access version.
Okay.
So it's a little bit higher, but not by much. I think even the full price game is like only $30 or so. So it's not, when they go from early access into quote unquote release, then it'll be a little bit higher, they say. But that's the same thing Ark does all the time. They've done that in previous games, and they've gotten crap for it before. So
yeah. So Atlas on the naughty list this year. So let's see.
Yeah.
Hopefully things improve in the new year. But I'm not impressed with the fact that it's just basically a reskin of Ark, and that like, advertising and trailers always show the best possible side of something. I get that. Sometimes you get something and it doesn't look quite as good, but the difference was so striking to me that it was an absolute slam dunk for the naughty list. Like, that's just is false advertising.
Their worlds barely make any sense either. Like, I climbed a mountain in the hour that I did play. I climbed up to the top of a mountain and found a couple of giant elephants at the top of a tiny little plateau.
Okay.
Like a really small plateau, which is incredibly difficult for a bipedal human to get up to, let alone a 2,000-pound massive elephant with antlers and these weird like double antlers, and it's just like,
Didn't they use elephants to cross mountains though? Like, I don't know.
Yep, he's not. I need to make this clear. He's not on a mountain crossing. He's on the top of the peak of the mountain, on top of what I can only assume he was either brought up to as a baby, elephant because it's the only way that he could have gotten up there, and then he's since like proceeded to live up there with about 10 square feet of space to walk around in and eat grass from.
Huh.
That's about it.
That's plausible. I've seen Dumbo. All right, moving on. Bless Online came out earlier this year. We did a bit of coverage on it, and not too much to say about it because it is kind of completely faded from relevance. At least as far as we're concerned.
So, important thing to remember, if you are a game developer and you want to find out the best way to work with like community people and community creators and try to establish a good connection with people, look at what Bless did, and then just don't do anything that they did at all. Like, if you want to make a good connection and if you want to have a good progress with the community, don't do what they did at all. Don't do what Atlas did either. They garnered a lot of hate by only letting in content creators on a like server that was like boosted up to be like really not that bad, but then as soon as the actual game came out, the quality of the servers fell, and it's just like, if you want to alienate and isolate people, yeah, do that. Do that.
Big lesson.
Do what Bless did.
Yeah, big lesson in what not to do. So yeah, Bless Online, and it wasn't even that interesting of a game, personally.
Yeah, no, it was. Now, again, they had a lot of promise with this, and they had a lot of directions that they could go, and a lot of the funner game mechanics are held until way later in the game. But then they screwed up a bunch of other stuff too, and it's just yeah.
Bottom line, it's getting a big old lump of coal from Santa this year because it's on the naughty list. But next, we've got a good one. Celeste. Absolute slam dunk for the nice list. Celeste came out. I couldn't believe that Celeste actually came out this year. It feels like it's been out forever. But it is an absolutely amazing game. If you like platformers and you like atmospheric games, this is an absolute must. Go and get this game. Put it on your Steam wish list. They just did a fantastic job. It's got a compelling story, which is really odd for a sort of a retro style platformer to have such an engaging story.
Not really. I play lots of platformers in 1832 and 64-bit games that are like that.
I guess maybe I've just been sheltered from that. But whereas it's kind of, I don't often play a platformer for the story. Let's put it that way. But this one had quite a good story. Did some digging into sort of mental health issues. Amazing soundtrack, amazing game mechanics, plays like a dream. Just a fantastic game. I absolutely love it. I was voting for it for Game of the Year. So it didn't take that, but it definitely did get its. It got its own at the Game Awards. It did take home some great accolades from that. Yeah, I was struggling reaching to find that word here. So
the thing that I really was that being up at the Game Awards, the recent sales and the recent people playing that game has gone through the roof too. So it's great that more people got to see what the game had to offer, because that was finally nice to see that that play out that way. So that was really good. I was really impressed.
Notional says, when indie games are much better than AAA expensive games from multi-billion-dollar companies. Yeah, absolutely.
Oh, dude, we have a video, a possible video on the horizon. I think we're pretty confirmed to get there. We are going to showcase in a video in the new year an example of a game that 3 people have been working on in a garage for 6 months versus a game that, versus a couple of these big title games. And we're going to showcase why and in what ways the quote unquote AAA, factories have just failed to live up to any level of competitive nature. And this is why you want to know why between Activision, Blizzard, EA, and even you throw even Ubisoft in there, and there's another company. Which other company am I missing?
Blizzard? No, you said Activision.
Yeah, Activision, Blizzard, EA. A little bit of Ubisoft, not too much. Basically, they've lost. I think between them, they've lost like, what is it, like over $2 or $3 billion this year?
It's a ton of stock value
in missed revenue, and also stock value, and also in like a whole bunch of other things. Like their expenditures are all up on things that are not related to game development, and it's just like, if you want to know why the professionals are failing, it's because they no longer take their job seriously. They're more interested in turning players into payers.
Absolutely.
And that is their goal. Their goal is for you to get this kind of reaction where you just dump money into the microtransaction system, and then they use you up, and then that's it. They don't care about you anymore. They don't care about the thing. And unfortunately, it works. I mean,
speaking of which, that terrible Lemmings mobile game that came out, that's another one for the naughty list that wasn't on our list here. And actually, I mean, it's a pretty small thing to mention, but I was really pissed off about that one because for them to take such a classic IP and turn it into just a microtransaction factory. But Dark Hollow makes a good point here. It's pretty easy, really. Indie companies make games like everyone used to make back in the day for fun, not how much money can we milk out of our customer. But we had the opportunity to see behind the scenes a game that like Saib said, a couple of guys in a garage are working on, and it blew a lot of the stuff that we have seen this year from AAA companies out of the water. So a couple more details to hammer out on that, but hopefully we'll be able to show that to you sometime soon in the new year. So Celeste, absolute slam dunk for the nice list. So next up, for games that came out in 2018, Conan Exiles. By the way, we're going through these in alphabetical order. So Conan Exiles, pretty decent survival game. And I quite enjoyed it. And I'm not a huge survival game person, aficionado, whatever you'd call it. I don't usually get into survival games all that much, but I enjoyed Conan Exiles, so that's what I can say about it. I haven't played it recently. I know they've added a bunch of stuff to it, but 6 months ago or so, or whenever I played it when it first came out, and quite enjoyed it then. So if you're looking for a good survival title, that's one I would say, definitely check it out. And then Fallout 76. Let's see. We've already had people placing their predictions as to which list this one ends up on. But Bethesda has just had fiasco after fiasco with this game. And I guess it's pretty obvious where it's going to end up. But we enjoyed it early. Like, this was a difficult one for us. This was a difficult one. So
we still have to do our official review on this, which I've been delaying on just because it's like every other week they keep screwing stuff up, and it's like the story hasn't really come to an ending yet. Now it's going to be a few years before it's fixed, which I will reiterate they have to do. Again, even if there's nobody playing it, they still have to get the game to a point where it's like, where you can sit down, get somebody who hasn't played it before to play it in like a year or 2 or 3, whenever they get it up to where it should be at, and somebody will say, yeah, that's a pretty fun game. They have to do that because it's their entire reputation on the line here. Now, I assume that they're tempted to throw in the towel because it's just been nonstop insanity over and over and over again. It's like they can't make up their minds on whether they're a crap company or not, and which is sad, which is really sad, which is really, really, really annoying.
And a lot of it, I would say,
I don't like to hate on this game. It's not.
Yeah, we tried to stay positive about it for as long as possible. I even made a video about, hey, Bethesda's listening to our complaints and they're fixing stuff. But at the same time, they were
then they
slipping
did
in
shadow
stealth
nerfs.
and yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And so it's just been really disheartening because we love Fallout and we have been fans of Bethesda for a long time, but it's just gone. Things have just gone very poorly. And I'd say 60% of it has nothing to do with the game itself, but has to do with the external marketing and the tie-ins and how they went about, delivering and marketing the game. I mean, it was not in a release-ready state, obviously. It cost way too much, but then on top of that, you had the whole issue with the canvas bags, and then you had the shadow nerfs, and then you had everybody's personal, and people who contacted customer support about the canvas bags had their personal info leaked, and then the Nuka Rum thing, which I don't think we've even talked about yet, but the Nuka-Cola Rum, which was its own marketing fiasco. It's just terrible all around, and Bethesda is just, at this point, they're just digging their own grave. So I don't know what they're going to do. We'll have to keep our eye on it in 2019, and we're going to be talking about, a little later when we get into the news stories, we're going to be talking about their upcoming games a bit. But Fallout 76, absolutely on the naughty list this year. Bad Bethesda.
Yeah.
I'm feeling quite
betrayed
by them, actually.
That said, I don't think all hope is lost, and there's a lot of people who've gone out of their way to say this is what we will see in all of their next games. All of their next games are like this, or there are people saying who are saying, oh no, Starfield is exactly this game. It's exactly 76, and it's the exact same thing. It's this crappy microtransactions plus multiplayer plus this plus that. No,
yeah, I didn't even mention the Atom Shop.
No, yeah, well, the Atom Shop is absolutely the only thing that runs good in 76 is the Atom Shop, which sucks. My favorite thing about 76 right now is the base building and the fact that you can build a base and then you can have people come and see your base and stuff like that. However, there's two problems with it. I like the base building. I don't like base building for the 8th or 9th time because the base cannot save or deletes itself or splits its blueprints into 150 different pieces, and then you're left with. I was left with blueprint pieces that were singular objects.
Wow.
Okay.
I didn't have that problem. I just had to. I had to find a spot where I could fit my entire cabin I had built between a bunch of trees. That was a lot of fun.
Yeah. So, anyway,
let's move on. Anyway, we've talked Fallout 76 to death. And
well, no, I'm not done talking about Bethesda yet. So Bethesda's new games on the horizon are not what 76 is. Starfield does not utilize the same engine. Starfield has a much more upgraded animation system. They have it's a narrative. It's a story that they've been working on for years, and it's more complex than Fallout 4 was.
It's a single player open world story driven game, basically.
For character customization, for a bunch of stuff. It is more in depth than their previous game. It's even more in depth than Skyrim.
Let's just put a pin in that because we've got that on our news stories list for later. But continuing with the naughty and nice list of the games of 2018. These again are the most important games, not necessarily the best games of 2018, although some of them definitely were among the best of the games that came out in 2018. For the King, an indie strategy game that we did some coverage on.
Played a bunch of this last night.
Yeah, it is. If you like D&D tabletop style strategy games, this is definitely one to check out. It's got great turn-based combat, a variety of game modes. You set up on a hex style map, so your pieces are hexagons. Travel around, and you can play it with friends. It's got multiplayer, or you can play it by yourself. Just a really solid title, really solid indie strategy title that we can wholeheartedly recommend. It's a very fun game. My kids love it. My kids love watching me play it, and they're always asking me, "Hey, Dad, can you play For the King?" I don't know what it is they they like about it, but I'll never forget the time when I was attacked by an evil fairy, and my kids are absolutely into fairy everything, right? I mean, they're little girls, right? So they're absolutely into fairies and all that stuff. And I killed this dark fairy, and at first they were kind of shocked, and then they're like, "That was an evil fairy, right?" I was like, "Yeah, that was an evil fairy." Not one of your good fairies. Okay.
It definitely gets my vote. It is almost. It's really close, but it is almost that online multiplayer D&D, like old school party game that I've been wanting for a really long time. That just doesn't exist. It's like, well, so there's two other games that we'll talk about later that are again really, really close to that, but just not perfectly there yet.
Okay. Fortnite. For the king on the nice list. Fortnite also on the nice list now. Fortnite obviously not exclusively a 2018 title, but with the constant expansions and new seasons and new things they're doing with this game, we decided to include it here. Fortnite's just doing really well. As far as a model of what to do right, as far as an online game, we can definitely point to Fortnite. They just seem to have this knack for giving the players what they want, not being... I mean, the game does include microtransactions and that kind of... And in fact, that's exclusively how it's funded, is through the microtransactions. But it's a free-to-play game. The PvP version.
Battle Royale version.
The Battle Royale is a free-to-play game. The Save the World costs you a bit of money, but that one is pretty good too.
Now, I need to stipulate, I am not a fan of Battle Royale games. I think I'm not a huge fan of them. I don't think they're the scum of the earth, but I'm not a super big fan of them. I in fact prefer the other version of Fortnite than the current one that everybody's playing. However, I have to say, and I have to give them really good kudos, as somebody who does not necessarily enjoy the Fortnite insanity fan fest that happens, as well as the Battle Royale thing, I can log into Fortnite, play one of their like extra modes, and have a fair bit of fun. And sometimes have a lot of fun. So much so that I did buy one battle pass this year, just one, and I did get it up to 70 or 80. I got up to the last thing that I wanted, and then I looked at all the other rewards on it, and I was like, I don't give a rat's butt. It's like I don't care about any of those other rewards. I got what I wanted, and that's fine. And I think it's like there's a lot of people who hate on Fortnite because it's what all the kids play. Well, it is what all the kids play, but it's also what a lot of adults play at the same time. It is interesting. We went to this big function the other night, and I saw I would assume about a 4-year-old girl, 4 or 5-year-old, super tiny little thing. She was doing the floss dance just out of nowhere, and I thought that was hilarious. And I thought, and I realized it's quite culturally significant for our time. Again, there's issues with the concept and the battle royale thing and stuff. I said, not a fan. However, they have managed to pull what they have pulled off. They've managed to pull it off really, really well. Even if you don't like the battle royale mode and the concept behind it, there are particular game modes where it's like, okay, this is actually kind of pretty fun. They released Planes recently. I haven't played it since the winter release at all. I just haven't had time. However, I've been seeing a bunch of hilarious videos of like people doing a whole bunch of different kinds of things with the airplanes and the flying around and it's been quite the boon for some hilarity that you can watch and see what happens. It's pretty hilarious.
Yeah. Every time you turn around, they're doing something new in that game, and that's one of the appealing aspect of it. It's not just staying static, but they're doing everything fresh, and they're adding they've added a new thing where you can just build, like a just build mode or whatever, and then sometime your creations might get featured in the map.
Which again, it's brilliant that they're doing this, because it's like, we talk about younger gamers, and a thing that some of these younger gamers will never forget is when their content is featured on the world map. It's like, it happens from time to time, and some of these like kids that get their stuff featured are just so happy. It's like it made their year, right? It's probably one of the most favorable. It's their iconic memory. I have a couple of iconic memories from when I was young playing games. I have a couple from Jagged Alliance 2, a couple from Neverwinter Nights, one or two from like Knights of the Old Republic, and then I've got a couple in WoW. And you might laugh, but it's like there was a time in WoW where there was a lot of like new players who didn't really know how to min-max their items, let alone their play style, and they didn't know how to like play as good as a lot of players now know how to play. Like back in those days, it's like you didn't even really have like websites where you could just find everything that you needed. Like those were in the process of being built in the early days. And there was a time where I could hold down a single location as a really good player, and I could turn around the other team just by showing myself, just by standing there by myself on the bridge. The entire team would get up and give up and go do something else, because they knew they couldn't beat just solitary little old me. And that's equivalent to what getting your map onto Fortnite does. It's like it's silly in retrospect, maybe a little bit, but boy does it give you a lot of good memories, and boy does it make you really happy for a really long time. And that's really what a lot of gaming's about. It's there to make you happy, right? So yeah, I think overall, Fortnite's doing a good job. You can hate on the genre, you can hate on the concept, and that does make sense, because there are some legitimate complaints as far as like, is this actually a good game to have and whatnot? But you've got to admit that they're certainly giving the community what the community wants, and that's not a bad thing. I just want them to port ninjas into the Battle Royale mode. Yeah. I think that would be good. Yeah, I don't care. They keep saying, oh, but the hitboxes. I don't care about the hitboxes. Seriously, give us all of the different bodies, and I swear that you'll see that the players will sort it out.
As long as they're balanced well, then it should be fine.
Well, no, they're unbalanced. That's the thing. It's like there's things that the big guys and the ninjas can do that the normal soldier bod can't do.
Oh, and of course, again, but as long as it's when I say balanced, I just mean as long as it's. I mean, if they're too OP, then everyone will just be a ninja, and.
Well, no, it's like ninjas are easier to get headshots on because their heads are a little bit bigger, and they're also like taller, significantly.
Well, that's what I mean.
Even when they're crouching, you can still headshot them, but a little bit better. They can they can fall a little bit higher, and they can double jump, which would add a level of complexity to it. So it's really interesting. They're getting close to releasing the horde mode, the zombie mode, the Save the World campaign. They're getting ready to release that. Should technically be out sometime this.
Yeah, because it's technically still in beta, isn't it, or early access?
Yeah. Which is... So they're going to release it. It's going to go free to play, and then there's going to be a lot of people playing that too. They're adding a considerable amount of content to it, and they've been retooling a lot of stuff in the game. I was checking it out the other day at my brother's place, and it's like, yeah, they've done some significant work on it. I can see they have not given up on it. They're retooling a lot of it because there's a lot of things that wasn't fun about it, but it's getting there. So yeah, we'll see. We'll see once that comes out. We'll see how much that takes hold. But it's interesting to know. Anyways, yeah, Neverwinter Nights is my favorite from old school too. It's like I really miss that kind of gameplay.
Mm-hmm. But mine is the predecessor to that. Baldur's Gate 2 was my game from that era that I really...
Well, you're really going to love these next couple of games on our list.
Well, next we've got Kingdom Come Deliverance. Absolutely another one for the nice list this year. I hope all of those devs get really nice gifts from Santa. So, if you're looking for an immersive RPG set in medieval times, it's a historical RPG. It's not like, Skyrim with the magic and stuff. It's basically attempts to be, it goes for realism, but just a fantastic game. So definitely check that one out. And this is another indie title that just, frankly blows away some of the AAA stuff that has come out. It had some problems at launch, but it's a lot of that's been cleared up, and I haven't played it in a while, but I just constantly keep seeing people singing its praises on Twitter and other places. Really loved it when I played it. Did some coverage on it, did some live streams of it. It is an incredibly immersive first-person world set in I can't remember the actual time period it was set. I know it's in the Roman Empire. Medieval times, but I don't remember the exact sort of century, but it's absolutely a very in-depth RPG. So if you like that kind of game, absolutely check that out. And then
it's a really solid game.
Very solid, really good. My only complaint was with the romance quests. I thought they were kind of meh. But I'm not much for romance quests anyway. So
it is difficult to do romance quests. It really is.
Well, it's like you spend all this time sort of courting this one character, and then and then they get busy on a pile of hay in the barn, and then you have no additional dialogue options with her after that. She's just like, "Hi, okay, bye." Like, I thought that was kind of. But again, we are talking about a game that was on the scale of this game for the size of the studio that built it is amazing. So absolutely one to check out from this year. All right, next up we've got Pathfinder Kingmaker. You'll have to take this one because I haven't played it. And
yeah, so seriously, if you want the old Baldur's Gate experience, Pathfinder and Pillars of Eternity are two incredibly amazing games. I have to give this one to Kingmaker, I think. But that's my personal taste. So the let me just figure out what. So I like Kingmaker more because you get to build a kingdom. Pillars of Eternity 2, Deadfire, you get to run a boat, like a ship. The ship mechanics are not as polished as they could be, or as they should be. However, this is an Obsidian game, and it's a great game, and you can tell that they had so much more that they wanted to add, but they just couldn't. Which is really sad because they had so much stuff that they could have added to the game, and they do have expansions and stuff coming. They had, I think, their final expansion came out just a little while ago, and it's a solid game. Both of these are solid. Both of them are on the nice list. They are some of the best if you want an old school RPG experience, or if you want to experience what an actual in-depth RPG is like, then play either one of these games. Mm-hmm. Take a look at whichever one you want. Check out them both. Check out the art and the style and the look. There's also several mods for them. The modding community is somewhat alive and well with these games, and they're honestly quite a treat to play. They're very, 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 very enjoyable, and they both pull off this, like, whether you're playing it kind of like as a single player or like as a singular person, you know, with one or two people on a team, or if you're playing it with like the biggest team that you can get, the gameplay is pretty awesome. And on both of them, I would suggest start at probably on easy mode and then scale up from there, because it's a beast of a game, but it's also great to play. It's one of the best games that I can suggest for people to get into if they want to try these games out. Get into either of these games because they are spectacularly amazing.
Mm-hmm. So that's Pathfinder Kingmaker and Pillars of Eternity 2, both on the nice list this year. So if you're keeping track at home, we've got 7 on the nice list, 3 on the naughty list thus far. Our naughty choices this year: Atlas, Bless Online, and Fallout 76. I'm sure there aren't very many surprises there. We've got Celeste, Conan Exiles, For the King, Fortnite, Kingdom Come Deliverance, Pathfinder Kingmaker, and Pillars of Eternity 2, all on the nice list. Got 5 more games to go through here, so let's keep it moving, I guess. So Prey Moon Crash. Now, so this was the DLC expansion for Prey that came out this year, and I'm putting this one on the nice list. It was a really good expansion, a really good DLC, worth the money I paid for it, in my opinion. A very unique concept with the repeating simulation, and so even though there were limits to the actual physical environment that the game takes place in, there was enough there to keep it fresh and interesting and challenging, and you'd have to change up your play strategy every time because you would have different things spawning in different locations, and sometimes the elevator shafts wouldn't be working, and various challenges you had to overcome. And I had a ton of fun playing that as an expansion for Prey. So if you enjoyed the original game of Prey, the 2000 was it 2017 that it came out? I believe so. So if you enjoyed Prey, I would definitely check out Moon Crash. Now, there was another expansion for Prey that came out just recently, Typhon Hunter. I haven't tried it myself. Reviews on it are mixed, so I can't really comment on that one. But yeah, Prey Moon Crash gets a thumbs up from me. Sea of Thieves, on the other hand, man, a game that had so much promise, and we were hoping that Atlas was going to be one to sort of be what we were hoping Sea of Thieves was going to be. I don't know. We'll have to see at this point, because if you were listening at the beginning, Atlas ended up on the naughty list. But Sea of Thieves, so much potential, and it just fell so flat because there was just no content in it. Like, there was very little to do, and just, I don't know, driving a ship around on open waters just gets kind of tedious after a while.
Yeah, this is not a shock for me. It's surprising how many people forgot how long and annoying and how much sea voyages were a pain in the butt.
Yeah, well, I mean, but in game format, you'd think they would make it a little more interesting, and I think it obviously is a little more interesting than actually taking a ship out on the open seas. And it had some interesting aspects to it, having to actually, work the sails and things to steer the ship around, or to control your speed, all of that kind of thing. There were some interesting aspects to it. Co-op play was, made it kind of fun, but again, just fell flat because of the lack of content in it. And so
now I think because they're still supporting the studio is still working hard to make the game better, and it is going to be featured. They're going to have this new update to it that'll be featured on the new console, so better graphics, much more to do. I think they took everybody's criticism pretty good, and Microsoft said, okay, we're not canceling you, we're not killing your studio because it didn't perform as to expectations. Yeah, we probably put it out a little bit too soon, but the big draw for us in the future is going to be coming back to these games, and is going to be making them better and better over time and offering them as a free game. And they understand that the importance when they do these free games on their basically, you buy their console, you get their membership, and you get all access to all these things, is to make these things worthwhile. It's not to put out an unfinished game, to patch it 1 or 2 times, and then that's it, and then you leave it standing as is, and people have to muddle through with what they get. Microsoft is going out of their way to say, yeah, finish the game, make it good, and do what you need to do to get it up to where you want, and to get it up to where you need. And so this is good. This is a really good sign. So, yeah.
I see a bunch of comments and questions in the chat. We will get to those in just a sec. There's just 3 more games to get to on this list here. So yeah, Sea of Thieves, Naughty List, Shadow of the Tomb Raider. I quite enjoyed it. I think the most common refrain was it was more of the same of the previous 2 games in the Tomb Raider sort of reboot trilogy. But if you liked those games, then it was more of the same stuff that you liked. So, story was not... the story was interesting. It wasn't anything mind-blowing. But overall, the game was quite a lot of fun. I really enjoyed it, and came close to 100%ing it. So...
Now, this unfortunately didn't get a lot of traction, and a lot of people are saying it's a failure for the year, which financially it is. And this showcases this duality of problems that we have in the current market. In one hand, you have a lot of people saying, hey, why can't game studios make new games that are better? And then you have a bunch of other people who are saying, hey, why can't you just stick to what you used to make?
Mm-hmm.
So the complexity here and the back and forth on this is maddening for developers. Trust me, I know a lot of developers, and this is something that is mind-boggling and frustrating for them. They take a chance to make a new game, and they get crapped on because it's not the old game. They make the old game, they don't offer hardly any changes, and the community will sit back and say, hey, you didn't innovate on this at all. So the need to innovate, to create new content, to create content that is not what you put out before, the demand for that is so high, but at the same time isn't respected well if you can't pull off this magical transition.
Right. There's a very fine line to walk there between innovation, but also, keeping to what works. And if anyone could figure out the mathematical formula for what is going to be what's going to be a runaway success, well,
you'd have people doing it all the time.
There's just it's impossible to predict sometimes. And so each new innovation is a risk.
Yeah, so this is why, like, in certain aspects, I can respect a developer's desire to make something that they haven't before. I can respect Bethesda for saying, hey, let's try a multiplayer game, because a lot of people are really interested in this multiplayer thing. I don't know if you've heard, but multiplayer mods for Fallout 4 and for Skyrim are some of the most anticipated projects out there right now. Within the modding community, they saw that, they said, hey, let's do that. But then they failed when it came to, first of all, patching bugs out, which that's the biggest lesson that they've learned, is that they have to stop being lazy with these patches. They are doing a bigger hiring spree. They're bringing on more people to address some of these issues. I'm a little disappointed that once again they're not looking to their modding community to say, hey, help us fix this stuff, and that's really, really annoying and a little on the stupid side. However, it's like I can kind of understand, like I get it. I get the reasons why. I don't agree with them, but I get the reasons why. So yeah, ultimately there's just this constantly going around circle of insanity, basically, and at some point, like I get both sides, but it's not an excuse for putting out a bad product.
Are we still talking about innovation in games? I think we went off on a bit of a tangent.
Okay, yeah.
So yeah, there's this. Every innovation is a risk. There's a line to be walked there, but this is where I think the indie game community is so important, because there's a lot more room for taking those risks, because there's a lot less on the line, and then you can try new things, and if it doesn't work, then you haven't lost a ton. If you only sell 10,000 copies of your game, like if an indie studio, if one guy in his living room sells 10,000 copies of a game, that's a big success. If Bethesda sells 10,000 copies of their game, that's an absolute flop. Like that's an absolute, like they're on the verge of going out of business kind of failure. So this is where the indie game community is very important, because that's where a lot of innovation and unique ideas happen.
It's also why, I feel that they've never really spent enough time paying attention to what modders are creating, because they go out of their way to create bad copies of like really popular things without going into the things that people are actually insisting on. And it's like the bodies, for example, and we covered this 100 times before. It's like the bodies that the skins that they make for their games. It's like modders create things that run better, have better animations, are nicer to look at, and also come in at a lower impact to the processing requirements of the game. How do you consistently fail at this? I'm sorry, but how do you consistently screw this up? How do you not go out of your way to hire this person immediately? Oh, is it because they like doing it in the nude? Is that what it is? Because, that's a selling point for some games. So,
wait.
I don't know. Maybe you're starting. I don't know. Maybe
you mean they're making nude bodies, or you mean they're actually coding the mod in the nude?
Little bit of both, maybe. So.
All right, moving on. So Shadow of the Tomb Raider, I guess, is sort of middle of the road in terms of response to it. I see, there's a couple comments about it being a little disappointing. But I'm still putting it on the nice list because it didn't absolutely suck. Hang on. That's not what I'm trying to say. I don't want it to be like, it's a good game. It wasn't anything groundbreaking, but it's a good game. So it's on the nice list.
Yeah.
All right, Star Control Origins is another indie title that we put some coverage into this year, and I covered it because I'm a huge fan of the old school Star Control games. I really had a good time playing this game. If you're a fan of old school Star Control, definitely check this out. And even if you're not, it might be a type of game that you enjoy. One-on-one ship combat with, quite an interesting mechanic of traveling between worlds and encountering various alien races. It's very funny as well. And, that's about all I can say. It's got a good sense of humor. It doesn't take itself too seriously. It's got fun ship combat. I will say I pretty much lost interest in it immediately upon completing the initial campaign. I know there's been some DLC, and there's been some, they have a world creation sort of thing where people can make their own campaigns. You can make your own ships and stuff in it. So it's got a lot of versatility to it, but I pretty much lost interest in it immediately after completing the main campaign. But I would say a pretty solid game, worth the price. And I'm also excited because apparently there is going to be another Star Control title coming out from the people who actually created the original Star Control genre of games. There was
this really messed up.
There's a bizarre kind of a thing There's a bizarre legal thing going on between the company that owns the Star Control IP and then the original creators of the Star Control IP, and there's some legal battle going on. I don't want to get too much into that, but basically it sounds like we're gonna have like two parallel franchises of Star Control, which, you know what, I'm okay with that.
I'm good with this. I want to see what they do differently. I want to see what they can offer. I hope it's not too much of the same. Like, innovate where they can, and hopefully we'll see something good.
Of course, Notional is ribbing me about my donut ship again. Yes, I know. Your
donut ship.
It's it was that was my learning how to use the builder. I guess that's a lesson there. That's a lesson there. Be careful what you do on live streams. The internet never forgets, and Notional will not ever let you forget it. And he'll harass you about it forever. Okay.
Hilarious.
World of Warcraft is the final one on our list here. World of Warcraft.
World of Warcraft has been out for ages. Their new expansion came out, BFA, following arguably one of the best expansions since basically the first two. They had they had BC, and then they had Wrath, and BC's kind of like really ramped up, and then they hit their highest point in Wrath, and then somebody fell asleep at the wheel. Cataclysm kind of really bombed. Then they had this trip to Pandaria, which was basically like, it's what you get when you take marketing agents from Disney and combine them with a demand to make products for China to get into that market and to specifically cater to them and only to them. It was really bad. However, it was followed up by the worst expansion they've ever had, which was Warlords, where the game, there's some rumors out there where the game, the population fell to like the lowest point that it had ever fallen to ever before. It was like vanilla level of people, which is bad, to say the least. Then they came out with Legion. Legion was really good. It was so good that I had quit playing in Cata, and I had heard about all this amazing stuff, and after months and months and months of hearing nonstop how awesome the game was in Legion, I finally went back, gave it a try, and was pleasantly surprised, although was annoyed by several things in the game. Decided to play it a little, very casually, a couple hours a week, and kind of see what the change was, and then BFA came out. So BFA came out to huge anticipation. They did a lot of stuff that was really, really, like, within the story and the lore. They did a lot of stuff that was really, really gut-wrenching for some people, entertaining for others. They really stepped forward. The art assets were beautiful. The zones are crafted to this immaculate level of interest. It's really interesting. It's beautiful. It's a great place to be in. But then their story fell on its face, hard. And
that'll kill it. That'll kill a game.
They're catering to They started to cater heavily towards one of the factions, which, shocker, I'll let you guess which faction that was. It's only what they've been doing since the beginning. They have it's not just like, oh, you know, catering. It's like and I don't want to get into the eternal argument here. However, if you line up access to powerful upgrades for mains and alts on a spreadsheet, and which one of them gives you what faster, mathematically, you have about a 30% bonus for choosing one faction over the other. So, to combat this, in a recent patch, they gave the opposite faction like a 20% to basically bringing it up to a 30% bonus for doing this one aspect of the game. And And oh my lord, it's like it's almost as if you suddenly like showed up and peed in somebody's cereal. It's like people are now really pissed that they have to deal with a faction that is getting a 30% bonus versus what they get. And again, it's like, dude, on a spreadsheet, you could put this stuff out mathematically, and it doesn't matter what way you like science, you like math, facts don't care about your feelings. Well, here's the pure math for you. The pure math says your faction gets a 30% bonus and has been since this thing goes. It's just math, dude. It's not personal bias. It's just math. And so it's funny to watch the insanity that is going on there. And
so they even things out, and
yeah, for the most
people
part.
who were getting the bonus before are annoyed by that.
Yeah, well, they're annoyed that the other faction is getting a bonus now, whereas they were used to being the darling child and getting whatever they want. So yeah, it's shocking to say the least. It's surprising to see how. Well, it's not shocking. It's like, I don't want to get too far into it, and I also don't want to kind of tip my hand too much as far as to like what I play and what I do in it. It's like, I can say right now that overall, it's not just that aspect. It's a bunch of other things. They imported this new system that they didn't play test at all. They just assumed that it would work the way that they wanted it to, even though, again, pretty much everybody was telling them, no, this is not going to work. Their leads just, I guess, you can tell when the developers don't play the game and they don't like the game and they don't spend any time building friendships within the game, because they give zero craps about the game. When they're doing their live streams and they're talking about the game, you can see it in their eyes, you can see it in like their tone, the way they talk about it is like they absolutely hate the game. They absolutely hate the players. They dislike it overall. They go on Twitter tirades about how their job is annoying and dumb and stupid, and how people are so, they're just a bunch of children running around and you have to babysit them all the time. It's like some of those comments are true to some regard. However, when you fail so badly, you don't have room to talk about this. I'm sorry. You failed in taking one of the best expansions that you had. You had the ability to improve upon those things and to get it out there, and you didn't even field test a bunch of your major stuff, which they're now back rolling and changing. It's like, you failed at testing your game when you have to walk backwards and do everything in, you basically just screwed yourself. And yeah, it's just
kind of sounds like they need some fresh blood in there. Or maybe
that's the thing, is that 100% they need fresh blood in there. I don't understand why. Like if you're running a company and you realize that your developer is, having a hard time and they just can't stand it anymore, they don't want to be making this game, move them to a different project and get somebody who actually cares about your product in. Mm-hmm. That's just like right?
No, absolutely. And it kind of goes back to the what somebody was commenting earlier in the chat, that if the people building the game are not enjoying the game, if they're not fans of the game, if they're not enjoying building the game, if they don't enjoy playing the game themselves, why would we enjoy it? Like, why?
Mm-hmm. Now, to be truthful, and to also iterate what Dark Hollow is saying, is yes, there are aspects to every expansion where they've done something right and they've created a system that's interesting. The legendary system is interesting. However, they needed to improve it in a little bit. People didn't like not getting weapons and not, there was some stuff there that could have been better and they could improve on it. There were things in Pandaria and there were things in WoD that they did introduce that brought a new level of good stuff and good interest to the game. However, overall, when you lose 20-30% of your player base, above what you normally have in people who just, they play the expansion and then they drop their subs because they just don't have time and they don't want to be spending, $200 a year on something that they only play for 3 months out of the year. So I'm not counting those people. It's when you like permanently lose out on massive amounts of people for more than one expansion. Like,
right.
That's the thing that we're talking about here. That's the failure that we're talking about. It's not just been, So it still is pretty early in the expansion, and a lot of people have been putting doom and gloom on this. I will say, as far as what they've put out so far, they have definitely failed. So this definitely goes on the naughty list. It is an MMO, and things change, and they have some new, like I said, they're retooling this whole Azerite system. They're completely changing it. They're getting rid of basically the whole concept behind it, and they're retooling it into something a little bit differently. And they are bringing some more stuff with the story forward, and they're making some changes, and they're listening. One of the big things that people were pissed about were like, hey, I don't agree with what the leader's doing. The leader is doing something that I don't agree with, and I don't think should be that way. And this is a level at which I can't support the leader. So they've given you a choice whether or not to betray your leader. Now, how that plays into the future is, how this goes forward, we'll see how that goes forward. So they still have time to turn this around, 100%. But they've also pissed off a lot of people to the point where there's a lot of people who have canceled, flat out refusing to do anything, refusing to come back to the game until a lot of these major issues are changed. And there's a good percentage of those people that will not be back for this expansion period. Mm-hmm. Period. They just won't be. And there's a good chance that they won't be back for other future stuff as well. Like, that's just the way that it goes when you screw up this badly. So again, it's not pure doom and gloom, but for what they've got out for the last 3 months, it's definitely in the naughty list for now.
All right, so Warcraft Battle for Azeroth 100%. On the naughty list, along with Sea of Thieves, Fallout 76, Bless Online, and Atlas for games that came out this year. On the nice list, we had Celeste, Conan Exiles, For the King, Fortnite, Kingdom Come Deliverance, Pathfinder, Kingmaker, Pillars of Eternity 2, Prey, Mooncrash, Shadow of the Tomb Raider, and Star Control Origins. And I just want to point out that is 10 on the nice list, 5 on the naughty list. By our estimation, you might have your own opinions about some of these titles, but the important thing to note there is we got twice as many positives as we have negatives. And so, just based on that, and just based on my general impressions, I would say 2018 was a pretty good... in terms of the actual games that came out, 2018 definitely had its ups and downs. But there's more to be positive about than negative about. And I think that's an important thing to keep in mind, especially as we move on into our news stories and talk about some of the absolute insane crap that happened this year. But first, I just want to say it's great to see everybody so active in the live chat. If you want to keep the conversation going after the live broadcast, we welcome you to join our Discord community. You can find the link in the description below. It's a place where you can chat with us and other Triple S fans about all the things we love to talk about and stay up to date about everything we're doing here at the Triple S League. By the way, if you're a brand new listener today, we absolutely welcome you to the podcast. Hope you're enjoying it, and definitely encourage you to join our Discord server as we go into 2019. Just want to look at some of the live chat comments here. Russ Hunt says, I'm looking forward to Days Gone. Am I the only one? Everyone shuns it when I bring it up. I don't really have an opinion about Days Gone. I haven't looked into it much myself.
I don't think it's... If it's the game I'm thinking about, which I should probably Google just to make sure that I'm
that we're talking about the one, yeah.
I'm thinking of this. This is the This is the emo biker versus zombie guys. I don't think it's bad. The one bad thing that it has on it is that it is exclusively for the PS4. I think that's going to hurt them in this case, because I think the whole zombie thing is it's a really packed market normally, and so you really have to go out of your way to be special. And considering that it's basically going up against Last of Us 2, because Last of Us 2 should be releasing in 2019. No guarantee of that. It should be. That's what we've been hearing so much about it recently. That I think between the two of them, I think Last of Us is probably going to end up taking it, because there's more in-depth people working on it. There's also some weird mechanics with the way that the zombies work, and I see it. I see what people are talking about. It's like, so they have this really cool, which is cool. They have this cool system where the zombies move in gigantic hordes and packs. However, when you shoot certain weapons into the pack, it's like 5 zombies will get hit and all die.
Like some kind of explosive weapon, you mean? Like,
no, just a regular.
Oh, I see.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, this game isn't out yet, though, so we've got to...
Just a normal bucket rifle. That's I didn't say the F word, I said bucket. And that's what's weird about it. And so it gives this a bit of an illusion, or a bit of a way, or the way that the game is presented, where it seems there's just some weird stuff with it, and it's not... And so therefore, I think that's why there's not a lot of super anticipation for it. It's just, there's this one aspect to it that's kind of like, I don't know, it's something there. It might be a combination of things. I don't think it's going to be a bad game. I think it's going to be a decent game. It might even be a really good game. But I don't think it's going to be a great game. I think it's going to be good, not great. So, and I think that's why people are like meh about it right now. That, and honestly, there's a lot of zombie stuff coming out right now. And the other thing that I think the meh thing gets is because there's been a lot of zombie games, and a couple of the more recent zombie games have all been kind of not good. So, yeah, I think that's basically what it boils down to. You got Dying Light 2 coming out soon, I think, with some amazing game mechanics in that one. And then you have a couple of these other games that are coming out where it's like they're pushing the boundaries of what you can do with zombie games, and this one is not. And it's giving you frankly I'm not interested to play this dude at all. Like this is where, like, if you can't come up with the best, most amazing, most interesting player character, give the player the ability to make their own effing character. Like, just stop with the forcing bland protagonist type characters down our throats. There's something to be said for just giving us the ability to make our own stuff. And that's what, I mean, that's what people want these days anyways. Like, stop forcing them to take, this is the protagonist, you have to play as this protagonist, and that's it. It's like, stop doing that. Just stop. It's not helping you. It's not helping your cause. Give us character creation, for crying out loud. Yeah.
All that said, though, I mean, you can look forward to whatever game you want. There's no judgment about. No one can judge you for thinking a game looks cool. But it's as if there's one thing we've learned from 2018 is that you cannot judge a game until it actually comes out as to what the quality is going to be. Dark Hollow says Planetscape Torment is my number one. Notional Kingdom Come Deliverance is you being a peasant working your way up to a knight, or the story of a console player evolving into a PC player. Oh, fighting words.
That's funny. I like that.
Dark Hollow says, gotta give you guys props to you guys for acknowledging Pathfinder Kingmaker. It's one of the best CRPGs in the Renaissance Kickstarter era, if you ask me, and my game of the year for 2018. Interesting. I'm
going to be getting more into it for sure. It's definitely It's definitely on my list.
Crazy Joy says, well, I remember I would put a shout out to Tower of Time. I haven't played it, but I saw some walkthroughs. Looks damn good. I haven't actually heard of that one, but I'm going to check it out after because that just sounds... that sounds like other titles I've heard that I really enjoy. Tower of Time. That sounds interesting. Let's see... Notional. Pirate games have been a huge letdown this year. Maybe Ubisoft will pull it off with Skull and Bones. If not, then that genre is pointless. Yeah, well, and I think part of the problem with the pirate genre is that it's slow. Like, ships are slow. And so you really have to go above and beyond to make the game interesting. If you've got the actual ship piloting mechanic. Maybe Ubisoft will pull it off. I don't know. I'm not holding out a ton of hope with what we've seen with Sea of Thieves and now with Atlas, but we'll see. I mean, maybe it doesn't necessarily mean that the genre can't work, but I guess we'll find out. If that one flops, then I guess it is probably a dead genre.
Yeah.
While we're on...
Yeah, it's...
Crazy Joy says, while we are on ship games, what do you guys think about the Obra Dinn? You know, I haven't played it. I haven't really seen anything about it, but it looked interesting. This brief picture I got of it at the Game Awards, it looked interesting, and obviously it was nominated for a few things, so I haven't had a chance to check it out myself, but it does look interesting. And if it's the game I'm thinking of, it was like that really stylized game that was at the Game Awards. Anyway. Let's see here. I think that pretty much catches up to where we're at. So, unless Cyberpunk 2077 comes out in 19, I think Metro Exodus will be my number one next year. Maybe Last Night as a second. Yeah, both of those look pretty solid.
Yeah, really looking forward to Last Night. I suspect strongly that we will see Cyberpunk 2019. I've given my reasons for that before, so I think that's where we're at. It's just a lot of things are lining up. Can it be delayed? Absolutely. Can they delay it for whatever reason they want to, for however long they want to? That's their prerogative.
Yep. And yes,
and with the amount of people expecting what people are expecting from this game, yes, like they're really going to have to bump this up considerably. So,
and yes, the Return of the Obra Dinn is the game I was thinking of. We saw it at the Game Awards. It was nominated for something, and it's like this monochromatic game that takes place on some sort of a ship. It did look really interesting to me. It's got pretty good reviews too, so yeah, that's what I want to check out if I get some time.
I can't do that color palette.
All right. Well, thanks.
Nope, can't do it. Sorry.
That's fine. All right. Thanks everybody for all the comments. Keep them coming. We are going to move on now to our top 10 most important news stories from 2018. Wow. Okay, we're already pushing 90 minutes, so we'll try to keep this moving. But I mean, it's going to be a bit of a longer show today. Hope everybody's still enjoying it. So the top news stories of 2018 in terms of, and I've sort of ranked them that we've covered. I mean, it's impossible to cover everything. So this is stuff that specifically that we have covered, and I've ranked them generally in order of importance here. But
and this comes from like the feedback that we get on the stories, the amount of views that we get on the stories, that kind of stuff. So and then also like our own kind of like importance. So number 10, Walmart in Canada is now relevant in the gaming world, because if you want your titles spoiled before release or before you talk about them, well, you go ahead and do what Walmart Canada did and just leak all that stuff to the internet.
Yeah, so glad you're still enjoying it, Russ. So, the Walmart Canada leak that happened just before E3, and this was an interesting one because we were skeptical about whether or not we could take it very seriously, but basically it was proven 100% true based on what happened after that at E3. And another interesting aspect of this is that one of the games that was revealed in the Walmart Canada leak was Borderlands 3, which we have still not seen an official announcement for, but it's definitely one of the best kept secrets. Or no, it's the worst kept secret. That's later on the list, though, so let's not talk about it too much right now. But the Walmart Canada leak, very interesting. There's not much more to say about it at this point, other than just be careful who you've got in there updating your website.
Yeah. All right, so number 9, and this shows the state of the game. Anthem, major changes with the very little hype, basically. And this is sad because, again, we've reiterated a number of times. I know a lot of people that work at this particular office that are working on this title, and a lot of them believe that this is some of the best gameplay, not story, gameplay that they've ever created. That this is going to be one of the best games for you to sit down and play with friends or play by yourself. That you're going to have an enjoyable time playing this no matter what. And part of me wants to believe that, but the fact that there's just so little hype on this.
Yeah. Well, we talked about.
However, this is a good thing because if you remember back, go back quite a few years to the original Thor movie that came out, the first Thor movie in the MCU release. Nobody was excited for that. There was no hype for this movie at all. People were like, Thor? You mean that guy with the wings on his helmet? Like, really? like. Ooh, I'm Thor, god of lightning. What's he gonna do? Like, seriously, how are they gonna make that cool? Doesn't he use a bulky, weird, dumb hammer? Like, seriously, who would play that game? Who would watch that movie? And that's the exact same thing that's going on right now with Anthem. I don't trust this. I don't trust this to be good. I don't trust this to do what we want it to do. I don't think that this is going to be a good game, etc., 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 etc. There's lots of complaints on this. Again, all of it pretty much justifiably for a lot of reasons. However, the gameplay is good now. It was not good about a year ago. It's really good now. It's really, it's not perfect. It's not a 10 out of 10, but it's probably a 9 out of 10, which is really decent. So if you're going in expecting it to be garbage and you're going to be surprised by how good the gameplay is, that's one thing. The story, again, I can't iterate enough. There's some major issues with the story. There's some major issues with the writing. They had some of their writers leave in the middle of the thing. That's always, always, always bad news for the writing. I can't think of a single project off the top of my head that had the major creative genius leave halfway through and then somebody else came in and worked on the story, and it wasn't just garbage. It never works that way. There's an unending number of examples that I can give you there for that, to kind of back that up. And I mean, honestly, it's just like,
yeah, We've talked about this recently. Anthem suffers for a number of reasons. That's one of them. Another one is its general reputation due to its associations with EA, but also the fact that a year ago we were looking at it as this is going to be a cash grab full of microtransactions, pay to win kind of a title. And that has significantly changed now, but you only get one shot at a first impression. So...
Yeah.
So they're going to have to. If I was Bethesda at this point, I'd almost be completely rebranding. I don't know if they can. I don't know if they can do that at this point, but I almost think the best move would be to completely rebrand it, completely re-announce it as something entirely different and new. Not call it Anthem, call it something different. But I don't know if they can actually do that.
It's too late.
It's too late in the game for that, but. I almost think that would be the only thing that could fix it at this point. But I mean, it might turn out to be amazing, but it's still going to suffer because of, because of EA's greed and because of certain, just other things that have led to it having a baddish reputation. So,
yeah, there's issues with that. So yeah, it's one of those stories where, I mean, again, I don't wish ill will on this. I'm certainly no fan of EA, period. I'm honestly brutal with them. I think that the best thing for EA would be to have the board of directors, all of the current top probably 200 positions at that company, for them all to be fired and humiliated in public. That probably would be the best thing for that company. It's probably the only way that company will survive in the future, because there's a reckoning coming, and we are starting to see it. We're starting to see it this year. It's just the, and we're going to talk about this. This is actually number 4, so I'll save that for number 4. All right, so moving on. Number 8, loot boxes have already become illegal in some countries.
And the interesting thing about this is that as you heard in the intro there, it didn't even require a changing of laws in some places. It was the Netherlands. It turned out they decided that loot boxes were already illegal under existing laws, but loot boxes are something that have more and more public interest has been and public attention has been drawn to this issue of loot boxes and predatory microtransactions in games. And so governments are starting to take a look at it. You've awakened a sleeping giant, you greedy freaking game industries. This is our game companies in the industry. This is bad news for you now. They're smelling. Well,
it's bad news for everybody, and we need to reiterate this point, because we keep getting comments that say, why do you want the government to interfere? It's like, okay, no, let me make this clear. We don't want the government to interfere in this ever.
We want the government to stay the hell away from video games.
The minute that you step into this and let governments start to control and mandate and fix rules, you're going to have the exact same thing that's happened with gambling, cigarettes, alcohol, and even now marijuana in places that have legalized it. The government gets in, starts to control it, starts to tweak the rules on it. They start to build a bureaucracy around it that starts to feed off of it. And then before you know it, these big companies that have done nothing but gone out of their way to take advantage of you, the consumer, are now being, they've now been cemented into permanent positions. And those people that did the horrendous, moronic, stupid things to do that are now the people that are stuck at the top echelons of this rotted, festering bureaucracy. It's not good at all. You've woken the government up. The government's like, ooh, another thing for us to sink our teeth into and put our endless capability at creating a bureaucratic nightmare to walk in and let us just control it and start to do it. Soon there'll be studies that have come out that show how damaging loot boxes are for people, how it needs to be regulated. Then you're going to have these additional taxes on gaming to help support people who have become addicted to gambling via loot boxes. Then you're going to have programs set up to help people with this. Then those programs are going to need more funding via more taxes on your video games. Then suddenly you're going to find out that, hey, you know what the best thing for this is if we encourage all of the games to have loot boxes, but within moderation. That way we can control it and control your access to it. And unfortunately, this means that all indie games are not going to be able to be made or produced or put out because, oh my God, they don't have loot boxes embedded in them. We don't have a bureaucracy that can control it. So if you're not part of the bureaucracy, you're out of the bureaucracy. It's insanity. I don't understand why no, I do. I 100% understand why EA is doing this. They're pushing for this. They want this to happen. They're more than willing to get into bed with the worst bureaucrats they can possibly find, because what that means is a guaranteed progressible, chartable profit tier profiting system that they can chart and measure for the next 100 years, just like they've done with, name the vice. Name the vice. At some point, when a vice becomes something that a bureaucracy can control, then the next thing you know, that whole system is booked down, lock, stock, and barrel. Look at alcohol. Alcohol used to be illegal in the States. Prohibition, terrible idea. What did they do? They said, oh, well, we can allow it in, but we're going to have to control it. So now you have these controls things. It's to the point where you can't create moonshine. You can't create your own alcohol, not without getting into big trouble or being in particular areas that allow it in certain respectives. But then you can't sell it without having to go into bed immediately with the government telling you exactly what you can and can't do. This is not good. This is what's going to happen in the game industry. And if we stand by and let this happen, then these greedy, moronic, enter in all the nice words you want to about them, they're going to be sitting at the top of this heap, this garbage heap that they've created, going, look, we managed to create another festering pile of garbage. And I really want to swear here, but it's like, we want to try and keep some monetization. And that's the process that happens with vices in, quote unquote, well-run governmental countries, countries that aren't basically anarchistic or where the government doesn't get thrown out every 5 to 10 years. And that's what's going on right now. There's this push by executives and people to set up, to make games a total vice, then to control it absolutely. And you won't have indie companies coming up making their own stuff. They're going to have a very hard time in doing it. And basically you would have to have you'd have to have all your current existing competition basically fail miserably. And again, it's like, and those systems are in place for 10, 20, 30 years at a minimum. Mm-hmm. At a minimum in some places. In most places, you look at horse racing, you look at any form of official gambling in the States, you look at, again, alcohol, you look at what's happening to the marijuana industry. It's all the same. Once the government gets in, it starts to get controlled. The bureaucracy builds up so fast, and then that bureaucracy is turned into a weapon to hammer the general population into line with it. It's like it removes all freedom. It removes all meritocracy and the ability to make your own products and put it out there and to get people to to try out your product, your thing, your cool innovation.
The last thing we want is for people to require, for the government to require people to have licenses to produce and sell games or that kind of a thing, and then controlling the content of games. We want to keep that out. Now, like, Notional brings up an interesting point about how government intervention is why, to some extent we now have return policy rights on Steam, that kind of a thing. But I would look at that as an extension of general consumer
yes, 100%.
Consumer regulation, not specific to it's not the kind of thing we're talking about here, not the kind of government interference we're talking about here. General consumer protections, I think I would look at that in the category of general consumer protections. I'm sure there's a debate to be had there about, whether or not.
Just you wait, guys. Just you wait. You wait until Epic Store starts running, because Epic is the first store that has finally done this right. Has finally done it. Has finally created an alternative to Steam. Steam is not a bad product. They're a little overpriced sometimes, but overall, as far as like game studio and control, I know some people don't like Gabe. I know some people don't like the company. I know some people don't like Steam. However, I gotta say, as a product, Steam is pretty decent. Like, it could be worse. You want to know how it could be worse? Look at Origin, from EA. It could be that kind of worse. No, you want to see another worse version of it? Look at what Activision does, okay? Valve and Steam have managed to create a thing that's not an utter pile of crap. Is it crappy sometimes? You could definitely make that argument. You can definitely state it. Did they have crappy return policies? Absolutely they did. But part of that was they couldn't really work that into dealing with so many other companies, so many other publishers who already didn't want to deal with them, so they had to create some of these caveats. But now that we have competition, and now that Activision and EA have failed in trying to create their stores. I could officially say I think Bethesda's store is not going to be a thing that's going to be worked on in the future. This is one failure after another by these big companies to try and create an alternative to Steam. Epic is the first time that they've managed to do it. Now, if they can do it right, and if they can continue to offer a better product for a lower price, then yes, we're going to see competition here. And when we see competition here, we're going to see, things get better and more things improve, and that's a good thing. It's not a bad thing. That's a good thing. It's a very good thing.
Mm-hmm. And that should be an honorable mention. As actually, it should have been on the list. Epic creating the Epic Store as a competitor to Steam, that was a pretty big news story of this year, and that could have potentially a very big impact on the industry.
Yeah. So again, we don't want government to stick their bloody noses in this, because they're just going to be out for blood and money and control.
But this is the cost of corporate greed, and so this is an important thing. And so I would say think very carefully before giving a company your money. If they're putting out products that are bloated with loot boxes and microtransaction crap, think very carefully where your money's going. Mm-hmm. Every dollar that you put into the industry is a vote of what you want to see out of it. So, think about it that way. But anyway, vote with your wallet, and let's shut this crap down. This loot box nonsense is garbage.
It's damaging to the industry as a whole, and you don't know what kind of genie you're putting out. If that's still
what you're letting out of the Pandora's box, I think is what you're looking for. By the way, hello, Sword Sister and Murdin. Glad you could join us, even if it's a little bit late. All right, number 7, the announcement of Starfield and Elder Scrolls 6. And the reason I think this is significant, and the reason I put it on this list, even though it is, granted, it's become very overshadowed by the whole Fallout 76 controversy, but Bethesda announced these games, and there's been some concern about them because of the allegations that they're going to be built on the same engine as Fallout 4 or Fallout 76, that kind of a thing. And so people are worried that they're going to be buggy, terrible messes. And as we mentioned earlier, or Cy mentioned earlier, there are some people who are also saying, that Starfield is going to be basically a cash grab multiplayer game like Fallout 76 kind of thing. And so there's some rumors to dispel there. Yes, in one sense, yes, it's true these games are going to be built on the same engine, but a much upgraded and improved version of the engine, in the sense that, for example, Saib mentioned the animation system earlier. That's been completely gutted and rebuilt for Starfield. And you probably have some more insights on this than I do, but
I cannot confirm that it is good. I cannot confirm that it is as polished as we want it to be, or that it even is as good as some of the indie games that we've seen. It's a new system. It's a whole new animation system. They have plugins for motion capture. They have plugins for facial capture. They have a much more improved lip syncing system. You guys got to remember back to the early days of the lip syncing programs. Some of them are god awful terrible. And yes, Fallout 4 and Skyrim are basically on like a second generation engine of that, which is now several steps behind what most people use. So I can't guarantee that Starfield and Elder Scrolls are going to be bug free. I can't promise that. In fact, it's Bethesda. I think we can expect bugs. However, what I'm saying is that with the engine, there's a lot of controversy and a lot of concepts when it comes to the engine and the problems with it that are overblown or not understood properly. Mm-hmm. So there is some legacy code within the current engine that Bethesda is using. This legacy code is not a foundational program. Is not foundational to the program. It's just things that they haven't gotten around to replacing. And there's a lot of people who make, and there's a lot of other YouTubers who go out of their way to make grandiose claims on this, or people on Reddit who make random ass dumb claims about this that know basically nothing about game development and basically nothing about programming in general, because they make these stupid moronic comments. It's like no, dude, you don't, like, if you don't know this industry, don't pipe up and say that you do. This legacy code, again, it shouldn't be in there. Shouldn't have been in there for Fallout 4. Shouldn't have been in there for Skyrim, for crying out loud. They should have had the ability to increase the FOV. There's lots of things that they should have done. It is not an inherent problem with the engine. It is the inherent problem with the mechanics replacing parts on the engine. Okay, let's use that metaphor. It's people not going out of their way to upgrade those particular things that are old or legacy, or have significant issues with the game as is, that creates these problems. It's not an inherent problem in and of the engine itself. If they took the latest Unreal game, Unreal Engine to make the game on, you wouldn't have the game that you're thinking that Bethesda would make. It just would not be. It would not be. As good as the Outer Worlds is looking, the Outer Worlds is built on a game engine that can't do the things that Skyrim and Fallout does best. And there needs to be 100%. There needs to be some upgraded changes to it. There needs to be some new improvements to it. But it is not the engine in and of itself. It is the people that are building it and working with it, and they have to come back to some basics in some things, and they have to really improve on the engine and other aspects to make things a little bit better. And what I can promise you is that, as we said before earlier, Starfield is not going to be Fallout 76. Starfield is a single-player game with potentially some multiplayer options down the road, but mostly it's going to be a single-player, story-driven RPG that has more RPG elements right now than the predecessor has, which is not hard because they've stripped almost all real RPG choices out of Fallout 4. You had a dumb little, you barely had stats, and you had this really unfulfilling poster of perks to pick. We're supposed to be getting more. That's all I know on it. That's all I can tell you on as far as the actual game goes. Mm-hmm. Can I tell you that there's a new animation engine in the game? Yes. Can I tell you that it's a good new animation engine? I don't know. I haven't seen it yet. I know that it's there. I've talked with people that have worked on it, and they said, yes, it's a much, 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 much better system. It is not a guarantee that it's going to be a better system. In fact, it may just come with as many bugs as before, but that has to do with the people programming the game. Mm-hmm. The Witcher and Cyberpunk 77 are built on the exact same engine, just different build models, and the difference is significant, is massively different. Just watch the trailer and the gameplay, and you can see that there's significant upgrades to the engine. That's all that is required to make an engine perform better at what it's doing.
Yeah, some of this comes down to definitions. Katriox is pointing out something here that when I read the headlines that it was using the same engine, I was concerned. Read what Todd said. There's no reason for me to believe this is confirmed same engine. It comes down to, what do you define as the same engine? Like, how many parts do you replace on a computer before it's a new computer?
It's like, so if I replace my monitor, then I replace the power cord, then I replace the motherboard, then I replace the case, then I replace the RAM, and then I replace the graphics card, then I replace all the wiring and the coolant system. It's not the same computer.
No, it's not, but it happens so aggressively.
There's no part of that computer that is the same computer from the previous computer.
But if you do it one piece at a time, there's still some continuity there that you kind of think of it as the same computer. So some of it comes down to definitions, but the bottom line with this story is that there's no reason to look at Fallout 76 and assume that,
which was not a great game. Let's be clear on that. Yeah, it was not a great game. It's not the worst game of the year by any stretch of the imagination. And I know people are going to be going, what? Fallout 76 isn't the worst game of the year? No, one of the worst games of the year is Bless. Okay, you had a game that spent 7-8 years in development, came out and basically was trash, and then they basically trashed the game and used it as a way to just make a bunch of money and then to check out, and then they reported over a bunch of stuff to a quote new engine and have re-released that. It's like, okay, that's disgusting. That's disgusting business model. That's disgusting treatment of the fans. That is a game that nobody plays. I have a little bit of insight into the numbers. Fallout 76 sold more than 3 million copies. Okay, let that sink in for a second. I can't guarantee how much because I don't know. All I know is that they crossed the 3 million mark. That's pretty good for Bethesda, considering what they normally make in sales. As far as now, yes, did they piss off a lot of fans? Absolutely. Do they need to get a better team of quality assurance and responding to people's problems and concerns? Absolutely. But they sold 3 million copies. It's not a failure. I mean, it's not even a financial failure as far as like, Shadow of the Tomb Raider. Is it a failure in general? There's a lot of bad things with it, but is it the worst game of the year? Well, it's a contender for sure. like it's a serious contender. They've gone out of like right now. It's even worse right now. But well, yes, they were anticipating selling like closer to 10 million copies, and instead what they sold was like, I think if I had to put a number on it through what I know and through rough guessing, I'm going to say that they sold about I'd say they sold just under about 5 million. About 4.8.
Bringing it back though, if the bottom line of this story is that there's nothing to say looking at Fallout 76 that this is the future of Bethesda games and that their future games are going to be like this, that they're going to be buggy messes. There's nothing, there's no reason to make that assumption because we know the engine is getting major upgrades. We know the animation system is getting major upgrades. So even if they call it the same engine, it's had significant, hopefully, improvements. Now, there's no way to guarantee that these next games are going to be great either, and Bethesda's definitely lost some cred points
major
due to this Fallout 76 thing. But there still is hope in the sense that we can still judge Starfield on its own merits, and not necessarily say, oh, it's going to be a fiasco like Fallout 76. Anyway, we should move on from that. We got 6 more stories to get through, and we're already pushing 2 hours. Wow.
All right. Blizzard Diablo. Immortal failure. Do you not have phones? Immortal. This will go down as one of the most, the guy just didn't think. He said he said something you'd say in a bar if you wanted to start a bar fight. It's like there's no more way to be more condescending to your player base, than to be directly condescending, then to insult them, then to basically make fun of them all at the same time.
While they're literally booing you.
While they're booing you, and then to brush it off and to not apologize. That should have been an apology that day. And the company probably should have gone out of their way to say, okay, what are the top 3 issues with this game? We need to fix them all. Yeah. We need to address them all tomorrow. So what they should have done is they should have said, okay, we're going to bring this to PC. We're going to guarantee that there's going to be no microtransactions for loot boxes or anything like that. They'll only be cosmetics. In the North American release, if they want to do loot boxes in China, maybe they could have kept that in there because that's who the game is designed for. But just to create a version of it that the rest of the people wouldn't have just crapped on you for. Probably a really, really good idea to do that. But no, they decided to double down on stupid. And, they've lost 40% of their stock holdings because of that terrible choice.
The reason this is such a significant story is because it highlights a bigger problem in the industry, and that is that of large game companies not respecting their customer base. They're no longer about serving the customer, giving us what we want. They're about telling us what we want or what we should want and saying, then here it is. Basically when he said, don't you guys have phones? Basically what he's saying through that whole exchange is the audience is saying, this isn't what we wanted. And the guy's saying, oh, yes, you do. This is what you wanted. You just don't know it. We're smarter than you. We know what you want. You don't know what you want. But we know what you want. You need to listen to us. It's as bad as EA's whole, this is to give you a sense of pride and accomplishment, to unlock Darth Vader with all that nonsense. It's garbage. And these companies that treat us with that level of disrespect should really do not deserve our support. And that kind of leads us into our next major story of a lot of these companies that have taken on that kind of an attitude and are treating their player base with such disrespect are seeing major stock decreases and losses in value.
Major losses. So
we saw major stock value decreases from EA, Blizzard, and Square Enix in the latter half of this year, and we can definitely tie a lot of that to failure to launch in a lot of cases of products coming out. But I think in general, these companies are gaining a very bad reputation because of how they're treating the people that give them money. And not only that, breaking on this in the last couple of, I think the last 2 or 3 days, some information finally, it's public information, information that ultimately you can find out. You can't hide it. You can't sit on it forever. Ultimately, it will come out, period. And when it comes out, you are, you're going to have it come out, just that this is the way this stuff works. Yeah.
Turns out that in the months leading up to Blizzard's announcement at and goings on during the summer this year, turns out that the majority of the upper company management all dumped their stock. A lot of stock.
Not everything, but there were some suspicious sell-offs right in that era, and it's hard to point to it and say this is causal. They knew the company was going to fail. We just don't know that, but it is interesting that there were some stock sell-offs right before that announcement that caused a huge dip. Yeah.
So this is really, really interesting because, again, what this means is that there are people who are, who they own stock in the company, who are now really upset, significantly upset that turns out that Blizzard knew a lot of this stuff was maybe they didn't know for sure, but they must have had their ideas. They must have had their concepts that the game was going to bomb or that the stock was going to bomb, because why sell off when they're on a massive up tear, right? And they decide to sell off while they're on an up tear. Really? That seems really convenient. That seems incredibly convenient. I don't know, maybe you needed to buy another house or pay for some wedding or something like that. Maybe that's the case, but more likely the case is that
they might have suspected this wasn't going to go well. Again, maybe they suspected that they know that
the people at Blizzard know that Activision is slowly taking over, and that Activision is a bad influence on studios, just like EA is, just like, every other publishing friggin' company in the history of video gaming. They're all bad for the games that they're putting out. They're just not healthy for good game development. And maybe they saw the writing on the wall, decided to check out. But what this has done is this has made the stock owners and the corporate interests really kind of, upset with this company and upset with the leadership. And that these are the people who are, this is some bad stuff. So yep. Blizzard started this year at $64 a share. They peaked at $83 a share, and they are now down. They've had a little bit of a bump here in the last 2 days, so let's report on it as it was at Christmas Day, and that was at $34 a share.
And that was half of what they started the year at. Didn't you say 60, no. 60 something?
64. So they're down 20 cents. So that's 30% is what they were down at the beginning of the year. So their entire stock portfolio is down 30% of what it was worth at the beginning of the year, at the beginning of their up tear. At the most, what they were worth was just under $84. And yes, they've lost half of that, and that has been in basically 3 months.
That's pretty brutal. Yeah, and it's the same story with the EA. It's the same story with Square Enix. And plus, we're not going to get too much more into this. We did an entire podcast on both of these issues, but there were a lot.
EA's lost about 30% as well. So
we've seen a lot of studio closures this past year, and there just seems to be something is not going right in the industry right now. That seems to be causing this, and we're looking at BioWare being in a position where, I mean, if Anthem flops, they're probably next on the chopping block, and we've been nervous about that for a long time.
Yeah. So
okay. Anyway, so we missed this one earlier. Number 6 on our list was E3. E3 is just becoming. This is another example of sort of elitism in the game industry, and
I skipped that one.
Yeah, we missed that one. So E3, and this affected us directly. I don't know what I was trying to say there. Affected us directly because we were working with some other YouTubers who were on the ground at E3, and what we discovered is that there were all kinds of restrictions on what you could do, where you could film as a media influencer, as a YouTuber, as someone who is not a part of a big mainstream media sort of
conglomeration.
There was a lot of restrictions, whereas the people from the big media companies had a lot more freedom. And as an example, we had people on the ground who, we bought passes for them under the impression that they could go in and film, but no, apparently unless you have a special media pass that costs way more money.
No. That's not the case. We spent more money than most of the bigger media companies there. As the team, we bought the highest grade of tickets that we could buy to get us access to everything that we could. The media passes are 1/3 to 1/4 of that cost. And
what?
Those?
Yes, I didn't even know that. They're less money?
They're less money.
And plus, there's no indication when you buy the passes. Under this
there
pass tier, you're not going to be allowed to pull out a camera.
Yes, it was a last-minute change that happened this year, a few hours before we got access to before our team got access to the facility. It went from, oh yes, you can film here, to, oh sorry, due to security concerns, you can't film here. Well, a certain large website, which I won't name, just walked in with 5 boxes worth of recording equipment, and you didn't even check them. So security, my butt. Like seriously.
Yeah.
You did, like, that's not how you check security. Trust me. One of the things that, as a side thing that I've done, is I have a security clearance, and it's pretty high. It's not super high. It's not worth noting about. I can't walk into the White House, but I can walk into several different places that require a significant security clearance in order to see. This has to do with work and some stuff I do behind the scenes, and it's there. It's not something you just, when you have a security threat, everything gets checked, everything gets scanned, everything gets the once over. And what we saw and what we had video evidence of is that the organizers and the organizer friends, people that were friends to the organizers, people who were passing money under the table, and yes, I'm making that as a general accusation because we've seen some evidence of it. I'm not going to name names, otherwise I get in trouble. But we can say quite confidently that we saw media companies walking in without any inspection of their equipment at all, whereas security was like, sir, you can't bring in that cell phone. That cell phone might have a BOMB in it. It's like, really, you're not letting me in with my cell phone but you're letting the fans in with their cell phones. You're letting the media broadcasters in with all of their equipment. You're not even checking theirs, and you're telling us, who paid more than a lot of these people, that we can't even walk in through the door with our cell phone because we're content creators, and you're afraid that you're afraid that we're going to do a better job at reporting the news than you are, like has been happening with all this stuff. Mini rant on this. I need to get off of it because there's a lot of like internal stuff here, and there's a lot of like it's these big media sites they got their hooks into the leadership and the organizers at EA or at E3 and basically turned it into a complete mess. Is E3 dying? Absolutely, it's dying.
Well, we had we saw reports that Sony's not even going to be there next year, so
yeah,
it's getting more elitist, less relevant, and so we'll have to see if it's even. It definitely was not my favorite of the big gaming events this year, whereas it was in 2017. But in 2018, E3 was pretty meh. I much preferred the Game Awards and the some of the other events that happened. But we'll have to see if it's on a downward trend in a few years, if E3 is even going to be relevant anymore. Anyway, let's get to our top 3 stories of the year, which have to do with the news we've covered about some of the more anticipated games of the next year or so. Number 3, Borderlands 3, the worst kept secret in the gaming industry right now. The most anticipated and announced game that hasn't had an official announcement, Borderlands 3. I saw Supmato in the chat earlier, by the way, which was interesting because we hadn't even mentioned Borderlands 3 yet, let alone mentioning it 3 times. That's usually what makes him appear. But Supmato's been doing tons of coverage on it, but we have, we've had him on our podcast. We have done a lot of coverage on all of the things that are happening. Actually, we this is how we got in touch with Supmato. We broke a story about how Borderlands 3 had entered localization, which means it's nearing the latter stages of completion. So we're definitely anticipating.
Some localization takes like 6 months. Other localization, some of the other stuff takes about a year. It really depends on.
Yeah, it takes a while. It takes a while. But Borderlands 3, we're definitely anticipating seeing something official on that very soon. And number 2, Cyberpunk 2077 has been one of, I think, our most anticipated game of the majority of the year. I mean, way back at the beginning of the year, we had the Beep tweet and CD Projekt Red activating their Twitter account for Cyberpunk 2077, which, of course, meant that something big was going to be happening. And then, of course, we had the trailer reveal at E3, probably the highlight of E3, for me, for a lot of people. It's one of the things we were looking forward to the most. And then soon after that, we had gameplay revealed. And plus, there has been lots of bits and pieces of information that have dropped throughout the year, lots of gameplay details, and a little bit of controversy surrounding the fact that it's first-person only, and the various reactions to that. And
I can confirm that they're going to have a camera mode. This got confirmed a while ago. They're going to have a camera mode in it where you can take pictures of yourself, like people normally do. I hear this argument. It's like, you don't walk around, in third person, so why would you want that in a game? That's so silly. It's like, have you not seen what the whole selfie phenomenon is, or people talking to their cell phones? And that's just as it is right now. Like, wait until you have like VR goggles, or like an actual version of Google Glass that actually works. And then when you have your cell phone can also double as a flying drone. It's like, you just wait. You want to watch what happens when people are able to watch themselves move in third person. Again, just you wait and see. It's a lot more of a real concept out there than you think it is. Anyways, I'm not going to rehash that, but I just wanted to mention that because that is a really interesting thing to note here.
So it'll have a photo mode like most games do now.
Yeah.
I mean, even
third-person photo mode
has a photo mode.
But now we also hear that they're planning on doing something to ensure that motion sickness is not an issue, and that they're going back to look at the decision. We will most likely, the game will launch most likely with, first person as its featurette. But I wouldn't be surprised if there was some way of being able to pull out a little bit, even if it is just basically giving people the keys to a mod and then letting people mod it themselves. And what I mean by the keys to the mod is, again, it's like with this photo mode thing. If you can establish having a mobile camera to follow you and take pictures of you, and if the game is somewhat moddable with ease, to turn that into a third-person camera is literally not a problem. That is a few days of work, and that's about it. So that might be them saying they understand and that they're putting this out here, but they do want to try this thing. I've been talking a lot with some certain people, and there is a particular small group of people at the studio who made this decision and who really pushed for this decision. And they were pushing for this decision as soon as they came on board. And some of them come from a particular studio that tried this before and it didn't work. It did not work. It failed. It failed miserably. It was a crap game. It almost killed the company. It was a horrible choice. It was a dumb choice. And not the whole body of people who pushed for this, but key members that pushed for this, made this decision again for this game. This is concerning to me. This is very concerning that somebody who failed at their job before is allowed to make such a call now. I'm not pleased with this because I know who it was and I know who the decision maker behind, one of the key decision makers behind this was, and it comes from a project that failed before. I can't reiterate, it failed. It didn't work. Now, can CDPR pull this off? They have more resources, they have more time, they have better artistic vision, they have a lot of things going for them that the other company did not.
Right.
But it has never worked in a game period before, which is why, I'm a little annoyed about it past despite the fact that we were promised that it would be first and third person. I don't want to open up an old wound on this, but I do want to clarify that I have more access to more information that is currently out there for this kind of stuff. And one of these things, this is the first time I've mentioned it, that that this had been tried before, that there's a key developer that has done this before, and I mean, if you do the work, you can figure out who it is, and you figure out what company, and you figure out what game, and no, it's not what everybody's saying in chat. And when you fail once, and then you take that and you try to force it into the next thing, you're playing with fire. You're playing with like, what happens if it fails, right? What happens if it's a mess? You know.
Well, it may have been a poor decision. I don't think it'll cause a failure of the game.
Probably not. But again, it's like we in the field, we look at, you know, extenuating circumstances and a domino effect. The worst thing you want is a domino effect. You know, 76 is under the domino effect right now. Bad choices on top of bad choices, on top of poor implementation, on top of poor customer service, on top of it's just one domino after the other, after the other, after the other, after the other, and each one is hitting harder and harder and harder than the previous one. That kind of stuff happens, and is the key to failure in most scenarios. Just like,
right.
Yeah, I'll save this for the next year. We're gonna do some obviously some more Cyberpunk related stuff, and if you're interested in the Cyberpunk content, we have more, and we of course have our inside sources, and we of course have our ways of getting you guys some more information on that. I believe that this game is going to do very well.
And it's still one of our most anticipated games of the
one aspect of it is what I'm very concerned with, because it is a core issue, and right. Anything that's a core issue needs to be discussed and needs to be talked about and needs to be understood by both the community and the developers, so that they can understand and avoid certain pitfalls going forward. I do not believe that this is going to be a failure. I'm not saying that. I know I come off as kind of negative sometimes, but in this, what I'm trying to say is that the general direction is good. If anybody can pull this off, they can. I honestly believe that. However, there's some really boneheaded, moronic concepts behind the decision, and I don't agree with those, because they come from, like I said, they come from people who are not. They're not core. They haven't been there for, you know, Witcher 1, Witcher 2, Witcher 3. This was a decision that was, you know, was sold to them, and I'm just hoping that it wasn't the sale, like selling them a bridge or a bill of goods or something like that.
Yeah. No, fair enough. I mean, despite this though, this is still one of our most anticipated games. We're absolutely looking forward to it, and I think that there has. Like, the Cyberpunk has a ton going for it, and CDPR as a company has a ton going for it in terms of positive reputation. And someone was mentioning in the chat earlier, you know, their focus on delivering a quality product as their business model, you know, and not trying to just juice money out of us with microtransactions and things like that. So Cyberpunk 2077, some of the biggest news of the year came from that, and we're very much looking forward to that. And our number one pick for news story of 2018 was the announcement of The Outer Worlds from Obsidian. This was a breath of fresh air that I think the entire industry needed after the debacles with Fallout 76, after a lot of hopeful games that sort of went nowhere. We finally saw Obsidian coming forward to deliver another what looks like it's going to be an excellent RPG, and something that is.
I need to reiterate with this. This is not a AAA title with AAA funding behind it. They've been working on this for a long time. They just recently got bought out by Microsoft. The effects of the Microsoft financial support will not be directly shown in this game. This game will still have a lot of features that are somewhat indie or a smaller studio than what you're expecting. There's a lot of things in it that are not as polished as they want to be. The looting system, the mechanics of the world interaction is not going to be at the level of, you know, Fallout 4 or Skyrim in the terms of, like, you know, how you actually feel like you're in a real world. There's lots of miniature aspects on it that just bear in mind. It's like, and they've said it themselves, like in one of the recent blogs they were talking about it. It's like, this is not a triple A. This is like, you know, A.5 or double A. It's like they've gone out of their way to say, we are a studio that has been struggling for a really long time. This was kind of our last ditch effort to save the company, literally. And this project is what Microsoft got a peek at it a little bit early on, and what made them say that this is one of the studios that they want to buy, that they want to give basically a blank check to, and say, look, we believe what you can make. Go out and make a good game. And so this isn't the effect of that yet, but this is a golden game that Obsidian has been wanting to make for a really long time, and they will, especially if this does well, they will create a much deeper, much better, so many more improvements on the next game of this. They'll introduce so many more new features. They will, of course, support modding, and they will, of course, support a whole bunch of other things if this game sells well. And they may do it for this one, or they may move right into making a second version of this game. Like, you know, Outer Worlds 2. And that's a good thing. All of this is good. But I'm just saying, is like, please temper, say, you know, remind people that this was done not on the budget of what, I mean, not even close to, like, not even close. The budget for 76 was probably higher than this game, significantly.
Right.
The budget for you know, people are comparing it to Red Dead Redemption 2. So please don't do that. Please don't compare it to them. Red Dead Redemption 2 had a budget of like $500 million, and almost a freaking decade of like intensive work went into that game. 5 years of voice recording went into that game. It's like, you cannot expect that from The Outer Worlds. This was done on a budget, I'm hearing, of like $4 million. Dude, that is not easy at all. Like, ooh, yeah. Man, that is a major difference. It's still, I think, is, like I said, going to be one of the best games you've ever played. As long as you're tempering your expectation, you're not going to have the depth or the depth of the world that you know, Red Dead Redemption had. It's going to be close in a lot of ways where they can, but it's not going to be close in a lot of other ways. You know, and so just kind of prepare yourself for that. Don't expect this thing to cure cancer, because it's not going to. It's going to be a really solid game that is going to make other AAA titles blush at the fact that they were able to pull this off with, you know, a 10th or 100th of the budget that a lot of these other big titles get. I mean, if they had the budget, half the budget for that any of the other games that we've talked about today had, with the exception of Celeste, obviously. But if they had half the budget that, you know, Shadow of the Tomb Raider had, they could have made this game amazing. They could have added every feature that they wanted to, but they've had to scale back on a lot of things, including, again, the third person. They've made it clear. Third person was not first person only was not an artistic choice. It was a choice because they couldn't afford to put the time and resources into animating the main character, and to animating you know, a bunch of additional stuff that you would expect to be there. So what they've done is they've given you the next best thing that they could do, and that's where it'll stay, unfortunately.
Right.
So,
but that's a good thing to keep in mind. But it does look like it's going to be an excellent game. It looks like it's going to be a very in-depth RPG. It looks 100%. Like it's going to be giving us some of the stuff that has slowly fallen out of the Fallout series over the years, and just the artistic style of it, the gameplay, looks like it's going to be fantastic. And so that's our pick for the top news story of 2018. I think it just came along at the perfect time, when things were not looking great, that we saw this new title from Obsidian. And so Yeah, and apparently it's coming our way in 2019. So lots to look forward to. I mean, 2018 has had its ups and downs, but it has definitely been, I'd say there's been more good than bad in 2018. And it's been a fantastic year for us, and we want to really thank everybody who supports this channel, who listens to this podcast regularly, who likes and shares and comments on our content. Thank you all so much for getting us to the place where we are now. We've seen a ton of growth in our channel this year, and we really appreciate that. We're really honored and humbled that you enjoy sitting and listening to a couple of nerds talk on our our very, very humble podcast here. So we're really grateful for that, and we thank you all for everything that's happened this year. We're really excited for 2019, so thanks for sticking with us. And thank you, everybody, for supporting this show. Thanks for all of the great conversation in the chat. Thank you to our Patreon supporters, Old Man Manson, and our 2 anonymous supporters. By the way, before you go anywhere, don't forget to slam that like button. It likes it rough, and it tells us and YouTube that you appreciate listening to this content. Also, go ahead and subscribe to catch all of our updates. If you're listening after the fact on SoundCloud or iTunes, thank you for subscribing, reviewing, following, liking, whatever you do on those platforms. And feel free to join us next Friday at noon Pacific Time, 3 p.m. Eastern Time for the live show, where you can interact with us and other listeners and be a part of the discussion. So no show Tuesday this week because it's New Year's Day. We're taking that off. We'll be back on Friday. The Augmented Reality Podcast is a presentation of the Triple S League. Check out our YouTube channel for game guides, reviews, comedy, news updates, and tons more quality gaming content. My name is Ashton Inity. On behalf of Cybsidian, thank you so much for listening today. Have a great rest of 2018. Have a great new year, and we will talk to you next week.